Okay, good. So thank you everyone for being here today. Great to see you all. It's a pleasure to be here with you as always. So welcome to this, this is the systems building tool session, part of the systems innovation and learning series. My name is Yasmin, and alongside my colleague Joss Colchester, we're going to host and facilitate today's session on behalf of the SI London Hub. So this presentation is going to, this session is going to be 90 minutes. It's being recorded and it's going to be available afterwards on our YouTube channel. So feel free to turn off your camera if you feel better. And we have the chat available for questions and answers, so you can use that as well throughout the session. I think you all have the mirror board link.
No, I don't.
No.
Oh,
okay,
there it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
No worries. And good. So today we're going to use the mirror board quite a lot, so it's good to get started on that. So as I said, this is part of the learning series of the SI London Hub, and today we're here in the tools for systems building, the second to last session on this learning series that we've started in February. So it's very good and rewarding to see this path that we've been so far, and it's great that you are here with us quite consistently. So thank you very much for the trust and the commitment for being here. And here we have our last session 2 weeks from now on the 28th of June. So it would be next week, but our speaker had availability on the 28th. So just make sure that this is changing on your calendar as well, so you can participate with us. So our agenda for today, this is going to be just a brief introduction and overview of the last concepts that we covered in our previous session. And then we're going to have a quick explanation of the canvas that we're going to use today. Afterwards, we're going to have 2 sessions of breakout rooms. So we're going to divide the canvas exercise in 2 parts so we can get the most out of it. And afterwards, we're going to have next steps and wrap up of the session. All right. So just a quick review of the concepts that we covered on our introduction on systems building. First, we talked about this idea as systems innovation in general. It's about trying to move from this siloed approach to understanding and to being complex organizations towards one that it's more of an ecosystem. It's about the relationships that we create. It's about the connections of the elements. So in our last session, we talked about the importance of building ecosystems in order to move closer to a more transformational type of environment, the one that is more innovative and thriving. So we discussed the definition, one of the definitions of ecosystem, and that's why it seems important to always be aware of the connections that we have in the relationships inside a complex environment. And is specifically important because in order to address complex challenges, we can't focus on the separate parts, break them down and trying to address such a complex issue with this very reductionistic mindset. So it's important to build the network, build these relationships, and through the strengthening of these connections, give rise to a better, healthier system that is going to, in a way, diffuse away the challenge that we identify. And this is one of the concepts that we were talking last time as well. And we touched, since we're talking about relationships here, we identified some types of relationships that we can see in an ecosystem, let's say, in environments. So we identify the groups are just separate elements that don't have a very strong connection. This is one of the most, the simplest types of structures in an organization. And then we went all the way to systems change, where these relationships are very tight and connected, and the elements here are aligned to this bigger purpose of, in a way, identifying a common challenge and working together synergistically to address this complex issue that we identify. And lastly, we mentioned about scaling innovation ecosystems. And here, again, it's not about scaling one specific organization or one specific agent. It's about giving rise to a strong network of elements, and then scaling the platform, and not just the specific agents that are involved in this space. And we talked about this example of the internet, that it's a very innovative platform, exactly because it allows all these elements to connect in ways that it wasn't possible before. And we mentioned about the innovation ecosystem example of climate kick and the UN. So this is another example in the real world as well of existing innovation ecosystems that we see around us. So these were the main points that we covered last time. Let me see, I can see the chat here. Let me see if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to address that you couldn't maybe address last time. And if you want to talk about them now, you're free to do so. Yes, as Joss is saying here, growing and scaling the network rather than the elements, for sure. Good. So any questions or any comments on that? Seems like we're all good. So the purpose of the session today is to use this canvas in, oh, sorry, let me see chat. Okay. Yeah, it's to use this canvas to organize this ecosystem around a specific challenge that we have. So here we have 4 main topics. On the breakout rooms, we have education, technology, organizations, and environment. So how this is going to work. First of all, you're going to choose rooms 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on the topic that you would like to discuss. So if you want to talk about a challenge in the education area, then you go to room 1. If it's about technology, you go to room 2. If it's about organizations, you go to room 3. And if it's about environment, you go to room 4. Okay. And in each one of these rooms, you have this canvas here. We had a very simple version of this type of canvas in our last session. So this one is a bit more complex, and you can spend more time discussing with your peers and identifying these prompts here that have more time for discussion. So when you come here, the first part of this session is going to be identifying the challenge in the specific area that you'd like to talk about. Here on the bottom, I've put some examples of challenges that you could potentially use, or you can come up with your own questions and challenges. After that, we move to the number 1, the center of the canvas here. So what is the purpose of this ecosystem? Why is important to build an ecosystem to address this complex challenge that you've identified here in the beginning? Then you move to number 2, which is what are the factors affecting the situation that you've identified? So you can post some of the factors around here on this first circle around the center. And then you move to number 3. Who are the actors that we need to bring together in order to, again, address the challenge that you've identified before? So in the first part of this breakout room, you're going to identify the challenge and go from numbers 1, 2, 3. And then we come back and discuss this part so we can continue the canvas afterwards. And I'll give you some explanation then. Okay, so at this moment, challenge number 1, 2, and 3. All right, if you have any questions or if you feel like it's not, the explanation is not enough, then it's there's a way for you to communicate with me and I can come and help you in the room. All right. So I am going to open the rooms. Let me stop sharing this for a moment, so I can open the rooms for you. Breakout rooms. Okay, so I'm going to open the rooms 1, 2, 4. And again, room 1, education, room 2, technology, room 3, organizations, and room 4, environment. Okay. All good? Any questions? Okay, perfect. I'll open the rooms now. And you have 20 minutes for that. If you have any difficulties, let me know which room you want to join and I can put you in as well. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good discussion in this first part of the breakout rooms. And I would like to hear from you some of the main points that you talked about. So I will share my screen so we can go through the rooms, and one of you could just share the main points of using the canvas and talking with your peers about this topic. Let me share my screen so we can start with room 1.
Yeah, I'll go with that one. It'll be pretty fast. We had the topic of education. We kept it very broad, so we didn't really zoom in into a specific challenge, but a broader challenge of how can we make education as a whole as effective as possible. Obviously, quite a large challenge, but funny to do with the ecosystem lenses. So how to keep education as a lifelong intergenerational experience for everybody, so that the benefits of the education is the highest as possible for everybody involved in a systemic way. And obviously, this is impacted by mega trends like automation, basic income, the fact that knowledge becomes more and more disposable because of new innovations that change things continuously, and so on. There is a component of the spaces of innovation, so the geographical where innovation happens, and a matter of freedom in education, because at the moment education is very rigid and legally constrained by governmental plans and programs, and so is there a possibility to bring more freedom? And Michael was saying, as overall, one of the most important components is the mindset and the mental paradigm that we have in our mind when we speak about education, when we think about education. Who are the actors? So a third part, parents are quite a key stakeholder when it comes to education, especially for the young people. Otherwise, learners themselves, schools, governments, industry experts, and when we look from a working perspective, employers.
Good. Yeah, very good. And yeah, definitely what it's in a way underneath a lot of the ideas and events and the phenomena that we see, it's actually the mindset that we carry, right? The way that we think and perceive the world around us, and that sometimes it's very overlooked. We don't actually understand the importance of addressing the mindset that it's behind all the other assets that we identify afterwards. So that's a very key part, and I think has some very interesting correlations with the topics that the technology group was discussing about, how to bring this balance between the human and the technology, and to get the best optimal scenario for both, right? So it's, yeah, very, very good, Georgia. Thank you very much. And so how did you find this part of the Canvas? You found it okay, easy? Was it good to have some type of different thoughts around the challenge that you've identified?
To be honest, I found this kind of exercise is always quite complex, because there is an element of vagueness that makes it a little bit complicated and it's natural. You need to start conversationally trying to get into and find an angle, but anyway, it's always a bit complicated to really pinpoint the starting point for a conversation,
for sure,
or to find an anchor point.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in general, because we don't have much time during this session, there's always good to remind you about the importance of specifying the challenge, right? To be not too specific that is going to restrict your overall vision of the whole that specific challenge is involved in, but to make sure that you start with something that is tangible and that it's close to you, in order to get more this concreteness to the exercise and to projects in general. So it's always good to revisit this canvas and trying to bring more elements to it, and to bring more connections and more insights. So this is just the first quick iteration, but
yeah, we missed that converging part at the beginning of the conversation, so we kept the scope very broad.
Thank you. So the technology group is the main ideas here.
Yeah, you can go, Bruce.
Let me start. I've only got a couple of minutes because I have to go travel to an appointment. But I thought this was very interesting. Thank you, Yasmin. I think some of the questions you were just asking were very good. We sort of started out with a simple statement that eventually worked its way up to this larger box. So that was a part of our norming and forming step of working in the group together. So we had a sort of focus as to where we were trying to go. And our basic point here was trying to think about a way of balancing the two models of impacting the world, both human intelligence and artificial intelligence, and recognizing that they're both going to move forward from here. Some of the factors that are affecting this situation is this list. The idea of ethics, which is probably on the human side of the equation as compared to the artificial intelligence side of the equation. The idea of transparency, recognizing that there are substantial unintended consequences of what's going on right now. A set of fears, the fear of job loss, changes in the employment landscape, fear of the unknown, fear for the future. In the broader sense, some ignorance of the capability of AI, especially in the area of soft skills, and then a lack of roadmap for going forward, and potentially a lack of talent to actually draw these things together in the right place, being in the right place in the right aspect to impact it. And then the groups that we're starting to think about that were needed to be here. We're thinking that there's it's an educational component to this. We have to bring in large global organizations to help spread this idea and this conversation. If you can, let me enlarge this. I can't see. Okay, so we need to deal with government groups, technology groups. We have to bring in universities, things like the United Nations. So a couple of us, we didn't consolidate this list into a single sticky. So that was that set of thoughts. And then the bottom right hand, I didn't see actively until later. Does anybody else have some comments on what's down there in the bottom right hand?
Now, this part here were just ideas on topics that
Okay.
you'd like to discuss, but not
Okay,
necessarily
thank you.
to use.
I
No,
hadn't
but
seen those earlier.
no
So
worries.
yeah, I think I think that this was good. Again, I'm trying to start to take a look at these tools and understand them. So this is a good way of interacting to do that. And unfortunately, as I say, I have to leave. But I like the way of separating the breakout room into two steps, so that we can talk a little bit about what we've done so far, rather than trying to do a large chunk of work and then sort of hoping that we're on the right track, or on a track that was consistent with the way the tool is meant to be used. So thank you.
Great, awesome. So yeah, as I said, yeah, this is just the first iteration, but I always recommend you to come back here and give some thoughts and put some more information when you research something that you think it's valuable to this conversation. Then you can come back here and revisit the Canvas, and of course use the Canvas in other aspects, other ideas as well. So yeah, thank you, Bruce, and thank you, group 2. And now quickly to the group 3, so we can continue working on the Canvas. So group 3. So what was the main challenge that you had here at hand?
Okay, I'll take the lead. So we started with the trigger here, how to motivate employees. So that led the conversation, and we came up with what the purpose of the ecosystem we were thinking was to solve this, how to motivate employees to continue doing their jobs in a fast changing technological world. And we came up with 4 things. I mean, it's important to retain those people who have the knowledge of doing things. So retain that talent, keep the organization in business.
Yes.
because you're not updated, done and gone. And then Kiran came with this management change. Yes, because that's also important. How do you introduce a change and keep doing business, and to innovate within an organization, to reimagine the way things are done? So those were the purpose of this ecosystem. And the factors affecting, we came with economy. You don't keep up, you're gone. Competitors, new competitors, again, can put you out of business. Training and resources, who knows? I mean, yes, we have this problem, but we are not providing specific training for those employees. Technology is rapidly changing, organizational culture. You have more a top-down organization who wants to go their way rather than listening to what's going down. And I identify that as a leadership, because it's not just the management, it's the leadership. So leadership is more focused on management, gone are the beautiful days. And the actors, we ended up just saying key stakeholders, and we brainstorm within that. So employees, the main the people that are more affected, middle managers, funders, customers, regulators, external holders. And we thought that, again, with more stakeholders helping us in this brainstorming, probably we can even go into the inside out change to solve this challenge. And so then more other inside stakeholders and also outside stakeholders, because it's not just, I mean, there's the organization in and out. As per the exercise, I think that, yes, as I don't remember the first person who did the presentation here, it takes you to, I mean, stretch out your perspective. Oh my God. But it's good because it stretches out, and oh my God, you have to have those system lenses, and oh, what are we talking? And it is an effort. And again, I think for me that I'm going to start kind of mapping the ecosystem. I've already been pitching this within the organization, and what is that? So the many stages. So the exercise is really beautiful. The tool allows to start a communication first.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
So guides you. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, this is just an exercise, right? But if you can imagine doing that in a real world, trying to come up with, different people, bringing those people together to talk and to find a common ground. It is challenging. It is, as we like to say, messy, but that's how it is, right? So thank you, Rosa, and thank you, Group 3. So now, as a second part of this exercise, we're going to have 20 minutes to do that as well. In a way, this part was to identify the main elements of this ecosystem that we are talking about, either in education, technology, or organization. And now the second part of this exercise is to start building identifying the relationships and the connections and how to actually bring them together and to create spaces for them to cooperate and to collaborate in order to achieve what we say a healthier version of this challenge that you're talking about. So here we've identified number 4 here, the steps. So now that you've identified the challenge, so what is the story that we're telling to these people in order for them to come together and to make sure that it's a challenge that addresses all these elements? How can we tell the story about the challenge? And then we have here how to enable learning. So this is a very important activity, the learning aspect of the ecosystem. How can we make sure that these people learn about either the topic that you're discussing, or learning about the complexity of this environment that you're involved in? How can we enable people to learn and understand these ideas better? Then we have these other 4 here. How do we enable members to connect? So okay, that you identify that they're important, but how can they actually come together and connect? And we have who do we enable? Oh, sorry, how do you enable co-creation? It's a bit wrong here. How do we enable these people to not just connect, as we were talking about the levels of relationship, but to actually work together towards a common goal? So these are the steps, number 4. And then we have the 5 here. How do we share this information? Identify that it's necessary. And how do we assess outcomes? So those are the steps now. Now you've identified the main elements. Now it's about actually making it connect overall. So this is the second part of this exercise. I'm going to put you in breakout rooms again, the same ones. And the idea is to continue on numbers 4 and 5. Okay?
Yeah.
Makes sense? All right, so I'll give you 20 minutes again. I'll open the rooms and have a good work. Great. Welcome back to our main room. How was the second part of the exercise? A bit more challenging than the first one? Maybe.
A little bit, but we were a bit more in the groove of working together. And once
that's good.
once we got Raji unmuted, then it was he flowed much better after that.
Perfect. That's what we need, right? Just unmuted people. That's perfect. Good. So maybe we can start with group 1 again and see how that part went. Let me share my screen.
Yep. So we had the challenge of a very broad challenge of how do we see education in the future, which actors, and in general. So what is the story that we want to tell? First of all, we don't even like the word education itself because it gives a bit of a weep kind of experience. So we prefer the word learning. As in general, how do we allow everybody to and then there were some sub stories, a story of freedom of education, a story of accessibility of education and enlarging the accessibility. There was a story of of fairness, of equity and so on. Then how do we enable this learning? Mostly from inside out movement from the individual, letting the individual understand as much as possible what they want to learn and why, and trying to find a perfect match between what individuals want to learn and the possible learning opportunities all around. Then how do we enable that? We didn't go any more concrete than that because Michael was saying, well, it really depends on the why for each of these people. So we can't really define a specific way to let learners connect between each other because it depends on that why, on the specific type of things that you want to learn as an individual. And how do we want, and then we focused mostly on, we skipped a couple of questions and we jumped to how will we assess the outcomes. And ideally would be mostly a matter of life satisfaction that originates from a better access to a better set of learnings. So we would look mostly into how a better educational system would bring people in general to have a higher life satisfaction.
Great. Very, very good. Thank you, Giorgio. And I think the first part that you mentioned about changing, well, reframing this idea of education to one that is more learning, and about the experience of being in a place that you can learn and grow and develop, rather than just education happens here in this institution and that's it. This is key to allowing more people to come to this conversation and share their insights as well, right? So to connect them. So very good, Giorgio. Thank you very much for that, and great work, group one. Well done. Some insights from group two. Technology. Let me see what happened here. Don't know if you're muted, if you're talking.
I can present. So we thought like to create something which is more okay. So it's more we discussed to have a more narrative, shared journey, where we look at both the side of the. At the beginning, we call like a problem, but we don't want to see it as a problem, but more like a generational disruption, because it's going to last for maybe decades. So, and what was really important to like look at both sides of the disruption, the positive and the negative one. Then we look at how do we enable learning, and we thought about like encourage openness and active listening. The reason for this one, if I'm open, or if like members are open to listen both sides of the arguments and try to understand what might be a problem, but also like to see everything as an opportunity rather than just something which is threatening, that also build the trust among all the stakeholders. And we want to promote transparency, because the level of uncertainty is what creates this kind of insecurity about the future. Where if we promote the transparency, that is going to allow to this active listening. Then we look at how do we enable members to connect. We thought like authoritative figures, inspirational people, but also like we want to also try to understand what motivate people to listen and to connect with other people and be like open to this discussion. Some people maybe in terms of knowledge, other people in terms of reward, monetary reward or any other kind. And how do we enable? We want to facilitate the dialogue with the context-based networks, like the one that we are now, as like the system innovation, with different kind of layers, and also be open to other networks. So what we said, like leverage boundary spanner. If someone has like a different knowledge, or other like networks have a different knowledge that can help us to understand better, or to look at the same kind of problem from a different perspective, that is going to help. And be like, I have a like cross-functional agents with the different knowledge, not just maybe tech people, but everyone.
Oh, very, very good, Alessandro. Very important key points here, mostly about the openness. We can't really bring people together and create these lovely stories if we're not open to listen, to actively listen, even if we don't agree, even if we think that it's all wrong and we have our biases as well, but to be open to the discussion and open to the debate. This is key here, and I think you've touched on this point very well. So very good, well done. Well done, group 2. And now, last but not least, group 3.
So the story that we're telling, we discussed how it was going to benefit the organization, by encouraging, those workers that may be older, that are not as comfortable with technology, to kind of get trained and motivated with new technology. And creating that buy-in is going to be huge. So it's how it's going to be a benefit to the organization, but also how it's going to be a benefit to them as well, specifically. And then enabling learning. We need to create the conditions for training, allowing them to step out of the chaos of their day-to-day and moving into just a space where they're free to kind of learn and advance their skills without any kind of penalty. And then enabling members to connect. We discussed, adding those design challenges where you're going to engage not only stakeholders, but employees, staff, middle management, everyone, to kind of be in a space where they can kind of co-create. And then that's the same way that we listed that as well for the co-creation. And then sharing information. We thought about, of course, upper management and those in leadership positions, they're going to want to see the reports. They're going to want to see those KPIs. They're going to want to see the data. But employees are going to need testimonials from people who have already, advanced their skills. They're going to want to see testimonials, and you may need people to have focus groups to explain how it's been a benefit to them. And then in order to assess the outcomes, of course, we're going to need those KPIs, those key performance indicators. But again, we're also going to need those testimonials. Is it working? What we've changed? Is it doing what we expect it to do? And then, of course, performance metrics.
Right. Oh, it's a lot of things here. And I think what resonates with me most is this space to create the conditions for learning, and to not just assume that people are going to do it by themselves, and you just give them this course, or you give them this, I don't know, this paper for them to read, or you just give them maybe the physical part of it, but you don't have the space for them to actually come and discuss these ideas. You don't have any other motivating aspects to it. You just have that very physical asset, and you just think that people are going to come and learn and discuss. So I think this is a very, very important part that you've touched upon. So yeah, that's great, Stacey. Thank you. And thank you, Group 3. And I think this session, it's normally a very, not individual, but it's a very local experience. So each one of the groups have a very different experience normally, but I think it's always very enjoyable to see the outcomes, at least in my perspective, the outcomes of it, and to see that you've been actively trying to leave your comfort zone and trying to come up with different ways of looking at the challenge that you've addressed. So that's very well done, everyone. Thank you very much for the session today. Hope you had a very good time discussing with your peers. And we came to the end of our session. I've added here some of the resources that we used during the session, the Canvas and the ecosystems building guide, so we can access here, but we have here further readings and further resources that you can explore in order to understand these concepts a bit better. All right, so next session is going to be case study on systems building, and I've put the link here for you to access and to register if you're not there yet. So that's going to be a very engaging one, I believe. This is going to be on the 28th again. So not next week, the week after that. All right. And here, as always, places for you to come and share with the London Hub to find our resources, our latest updates. So you have the website here, LinkedIn, Twitter, and as always, the YouTube channel where this recording and all the other ones that we have is going to be available. And a quick feedback, if you may, for us to always continue developing the experiences that we create here. So did you get a good understanding of the concepts? Was the format of the session effective? And any ideas on how we can improve our next sessions? Okay. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for participating. It's always great to see you here. And see you on the 28th for the case study. Take care. Have a good evening, afternoon, or day. Bye.